Dear friends, welcome to the channel The Eastern Front. Today we will talk about the weapons of victory. Nobody will make a movie about this weapon. People don't talk about it in documentaries and newsreels. But nevertheless, there were heroes who organized weapons workshops in difficult military conditions. A video about a device for sending trains downhill has recently been released on my channel. And today we will continue to talk about the partisans and their inventions. To create weapons during the war, they used literally everything that was at hand and that could be obtained in battles. Metal from downed German planes, gasoline barrels, water pipes and much more were used. They have successfully launched the production of small arms, grenade launchers and hand grenades in forests and swamps. At the same time, some copies were superior to their characteristic to factory weapons. Thus they made their invaluable contribution to the victory over the enemy and brought the end of the war closer. One of the illustrative stories of the organization of an armory workshop is its creation in a partisan detachment in the Mogilev region. The organizer of the forest weapons factory was the commander of the detachments, Pyotr Cheslavsky. In his diary he wrote that the beginning of his activity was laid on 25 December 1942 by repairing aircraft machine guns for the needs of the partisans. At first only 2 fighters worked in the workshop under the guidance of a locksmith. The idea of self-production of weapons came to his mind when, while at the brigade headquarters, on 29 March 1943, he passed by one of the dugouts and saw the cargo sent from the mainland, lowered by parachutes. Among the cargo was a quantity of ammunition, including cartridges for PPSH. So the idea was born to establish its own production of automatic weapons. 2 days later, work began in the workshop on the PPSH No. 1 submachine gun, which was ready a week later. On 5 April, the brigade headquarters successfully tested the homemade PPSH, first with the single shots and then with the burst. After that, the serial production of submachine guns began. The workshop soon moved to a new location and settled on an island among the swamps. Given the constant anti-partisan raids by German punishers, work on the products was suspended 4 times for various periods. By July 1943, the first batch of 9 serial PPSH was completed. Soon, work began in the workshop on the modernization of the PPSH, with increased rigidity of the upper cover of the casing, which led to a reduction in the number of delays during firing and increased the accuracy of aimed fire. Pyotr Ivanovich wrote about his invention in a letter to the author of the submachine gun, to the Georgy Semyonovich Shpagin, and sent a sketch of the tail attachment of the upper part of the casing to the Bureau of Inventions of the USSR. In total, in 1943, the armory plant produced 17 new PPSH, and by mid-1944, this figure exceeded 100 automatic weapons. The staff of gunsmith has grown to 23 people. A talented organizer, partisan and engineer Pyotr Ivanovich Cheslavsky died on 16 May 1944 during the storming of an enemy garrison. Another story is no less interesting when Belarusian partisans converted the German MP-3840 machine gun into a Soviet cartridge. This weapon was developed jointly to Temikov and Menkin. The proprietary design of the submachine gun, according to the type of the German MP-3840 for the Soviet cartridge, received the original name TM44, Temikov-Menkin model 1944. As in other armory workshops, in the detachment production of submachine guns began with the copying the regular Soviet PPSH and PPD. In May 1943, Menkin brought his first PPSH to the commander of the detachment, which looked clumsy but shot flawlessly. In July, Temikov also started producing weapons, this time according to the PPD type. In total, by this time, 4 weapons workshops were operating in detachments. Over time, when the workshops in the brigade were united, both masters began to work together. Timikov became the head of the workshop who came up with the idea of producing submachine guns of his own design. The mass production of submachine guns can be said to have been adjusted from improvised means. The barrel of the weapon was made from an unusable Mosin rifle. The cooling casing was made from a bicycle frame. The bolt casing is made of water pipes taken in battle during the defeat of the German garrison. Shudder from the mill shaft. The trigger box together with the handle is made of gasoline barrels. The cheeks of the machine gun from a German downed plane. The handle is made of cattle horns. By May 1944, the brigade had manufactured 107 new submachine guns, including the PPSH 62 type and the PPD 28 type, and the German PPT 44-17. In June, 2 copies of the original weapons went to Moscow. They were intended for Marshal Voroshilov and the chief of the Central Staff of the Partisan movement, Lieutenant General Ponomarenko. Submachine guns were praised by the main Soviet partisan, and his wishes to perpetuate this feat for the future generation in the Museum of the Patriotic War. One of the most striking pages of the manufacture of homemade partisan weapons in Belarus was left by engineer Tengiz Evgenievich Shavgulidze. On 15 May 1943, he invented and offered to the headquarters of the leadership of the partisan detachments of the Minsk region several variants of the partisan grenade of the PGSH. An experimental batch of the first 5 grenades showed trouble-free operation. Further test of grenades with defensive covers gave a shrapnel damage radius of up to 120 meters, and the lethal effect of the PGSH was maintained up to 25 meters. The weight of the grenades ranged from 200 grams to 1.5 kilo, depending on the model. The partisans noted that the grenades of the PGSH brand have several times the explosion force compared to factory grenades of the same weight, which gives the effectiveness of defeating the enemy and produces a demoralizing effect when used in combat. So, in June 1943, 60 PGSH grenades were successfully used in the battle. It's not surprising that Shavgulidze was transferred to the headquarters of the leadership to the position of a subversive instructor and sent to the partisan weapons workshops of the Minsk detachments with business trips to establish serial production of hand grenades. From May to September 1943, 5 more partisan brigades launched the production of homemade grenades, daily volume from 8 to 20 units. In 1943 alone, the workshops produced more than 7,000 grenades of various models. In September 1943, after the successful introduction of grenades of his design into mass production, Shavgulidze took up the development of a partisan rifle grenade launcher, PRGSH. In October, after minor improvements, the PRGSH was ready. It was a melee weapon for destroying enemy manpower and suppressing its firing points, no less powerful than a 50mm mortar mine. The range of shooting from a rifle or carbine reached 300–400 meters. Throwing a grenade was carried out by using a conventional rifle blank cartridge. The PRGSH mortar was made from a 45mm shell casing and had a smooth barrel, which facilitated loading and reduced recoil when firing. PRGSH-1 grenades of their own design were used as a projectile ammunition. Such a grenade weighing 400 grams had a fragmentation radius of up to 100 meters with a lethal force of 20–25 meters. For the first time, the PRGSH grenade launchers were used in an ambush by a group of partisans against a company of Germans moving along the Luban-Urechi highway. 3 bursts were fired from 6 grenade launchers, as a result of which the entire company, leaving the dead and wounded, fled. During the defeat of the rear of the 102nd German Division in the village of Belichi, a group of 8 grenade launchers made 5 or 6 bursts at the garrison of more than 500 people and forced the enemy to hastily leave the place of deployment, leaving 38 dead. In total, by the beginning of 1944, 120 PRGSH units and more than 3,000 PRGSH-1 grenades were produced. The total share of homemade submachine guns was only 2% of the total number of partisans in service, only 400 units out of 20,000. The share of homemade grenades turned out to be slightly higher, about 5%, which exceeded the figure of captured ammunition. In total, about 10,000 grenades were produced. Despite such modest figures, the contribution made by the partisan workshops to strengthening the combat capability of the People's Avengers showed their willingness to continue resistance even in isolation from the mainland. Dear friends, that's all for today. It was Tim and the Eastern Front channel. If you like video, please support the channel with likes and any comments. It really helps. And I wish you peace and health. See you.